Hey everybody, this is Deryl with Motivation Through Recovery. Remember, you are somebody and you do matter. Today we're going to talk about, are you in deception or are you in recovery? Are you in deception or are you in recovery? A lot of people believe that they are in recovery just because maybe they're not doing their same drug of choice anymore. Or maybe they step out, or they're not using as heavily as they used to. So they kind of cut back a little bit. Maybe it's just on the weekends or on holidays. At least that's how it begins. But then all of a sudden, as they continue on, you begin to make those little compromises along the way. And all of a sudden, you're back off to the races again. So the question is, are you in recovery or are you in deception? First thing you want to do to make sure that you are not in deception is, number one, don't deceive yourself. Don't deceive yourself. You can try to convince everybody else you're doing well, but the bottom line is that it hurts you in the process, understanding that you are putting yourself in a position to lose every single time. I remember I spoke at a motivational conference at a jail here locally, and I spoke in front of 150 inmates. And I remember after that event was over with and they were dismissing the inmates back to their pods, there was a gentleman that was waiting to get dismissed back to his pod, and he kind of motioned at me and kind of, psst, 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 hey man, you remember me? You remember me? And the face looked familiar, but I couldn't recall the name. But then I said, yeah, you look familiar. He said, hey man, I used to be in the treatment center you used to work for. He said, and man, we were getting over on y'all left and right. Y'all didn't have a clue about what we were doing. We would be popping pills, crushing them up, snorting them, getting over on y'all all the time, beating you ass the whole 9 yards. And while he's telling me this, I'm kind of looking around as in his environment, looking around at what he is in right now, which is in jail. So he kind of looked at me kind of odd and asked me a question. I said, look, let me ask you something, man. How did that work out for you? And he paused and he thought for a minute, realizing where it was. He just said, dang. See, he thought he was getting over on someone else, thought he was getting over on the program, thought he was getting away with his use. But the bottom line is the only person he was deceiving was himself. So the first thing you got to make sure you don't deceive yourself. Listen, you can't think that you're hurting other people by sneaking and using. The only one you're hurting is yourself. The second thing you got to do is you got to ask yourself a question. Is this the right decision for me to make at this particular point in time? If you're thinking about going out there and using, if you're thinking about throwing in the towel, throwing away what sobriety you have, whether it's a little or a lot, you got to ask yourself a question. Is this the best decision I can make right now? And then make the decision to make the right decision and not the wrong. Because if you make the wrong, you'll go back down that path again where you start making those decisions, where you start hurting yourself and you put yourself back and jeopardize your sobriety. And the last thing you want to make sure you do, if you think your decision is so credible, if you think that what you're doing is so right, if you think that you're operating in recovery and not deception, run it by credible people. If you think your credibility is all that, run it by credible people. See what a credible person thinks. See what somebody who has your best interest in hand. See somebody that doesn't want to see you get hurt and is not afraid to tell you the truth. If you think your decision-making process is credible, run it by credible people. So remember, number one, don't deceive yourself. Number two, ask yourself the question, is this the best decision I can make right now? And the last thing, if you think your decision is credible, run it by credible people. Drop a comment below and let us know, how have you dealt with the fact of making sure that you stayed in recovery and not deception where you are fooling yourself in the process. I'm Deryl with Motivation Through Recovery. Remember, you are somebody and you do matter.